Mass deportations have started, and Democrats are clutching their pearls like they just heard someone say Merry Christmas, unironically. Federal agents are rounding up violent offenders in sanctuary cities like Boston, the places where laws are apparently optional as long as you vote blue. Ilhan Omar even called enforcing immigration law un-American. Sure, Ilhan, because nothing screams patriotism like rewriting John Adams' legacy into an open borders fanfiction. And then there's the guy who said he wasn't going back to Haiti. Bold move, but here's the plot twist. He's already packing for his complimentary trip courtesy of ICE Airlines. Don't worry, the left will probably call that cruel and unusual punishment next. Meanwhile, the rest of us are just sitting here wondering when common sense became a radical idea. Grab a seat, folks, because the sanctimony is flowing faster than the illegal crossings they pretend don't exist. Let's get into it.
This afternoon, NBC 10 saw multiple unmarked SUVs here. 5 people, some wearing vests that said police federal agents on the back, went inside one of the apartment buildings. 2 agents waited outside, 1 person taken into custody that we saw. Whether this is connected to President Trump's effort to root out illegal immigrants, something he has promised to do, is unknown. We also saw federal agents at a building on Lexington Street, also here in East Boston. A witness there told us she saw 1 person arrested. There's roughly 11 million undocumented people around the country. President Trump has said the priority is finding and deporting those with criminal backgrounds.
Massachusetts, and Boston in particular, has become the unofficial capital of Sanctuary City Survivor, Political Edition. As one of 8 sanctuary cities in the state, alongside Amherst, Cambridge, Chelsea, Concord, Newton, Northampton, and Somerville, Boston proudly embraces policies that tell federal immigration enforcement, thanks, but no thanks. The idea: build trust in immigrant communities by ensuring local cops don't ask about immigration status or comply with federal detainer requests. The result? Well, it's kind of like putting up a no-rule sign and being surprised when things get messy. Now, here's where the plot thickens. ICE recently conducted a multi-city sweep, arresting over 460 individuals with criminal records in sanctuary cities across the country. Boston? Oh, it had its share of VIPs in the line. ICE nabbed an MS-13 gang member wanted for murder in El Salvador and a Haitian gang member with 17 convictions because apparently the first 16 weren't enough.
Good morning, everyone.
It's a frigid 5 degrees in the pre-dawn hours just outside of Boston, where this team of elite ICE officers is briefing on their targets for the day.
We're going to be targeting some extremely violent offenders today.
Within moments, the officers are on the move, with eyes on their first target.
Looks like we got movement, target vehicle coming out.
They quickly take him into custody. He's an MS-13 gang member wanted in El Salvador for aggravated murder. And he has an Interpol red notice out for his arrest.
We are targeting very violent threats to our community.
I'm not going back to Haiti.
One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
Trump, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
Nationally, 46% of deportees in 2022 had violent criminal records, according to ICE. But thanks to sanctuary policies, many of these folks get a free pass back onto the streets. It's like a criminal punch card. Commit enough crimes and your next one's on the house. Let's talk money, because compassion isn't cheap. Massachusetts spent a jaw-dropping $139 million in 2023 on emergency housing and services for migrants. Boston's share of that, substantial. According to the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development, local shelters are running at or near capacity, with about 20% of clients being recent migrants. Schools are feeling the squeeze too, with Boston Public Schools reporting a 30% surge in non-English speaking students over the last 2 years. That's a lot of extra teachers and translators, all paid by, you guessed it, taxpayers. And hospitals, they're drowning in unpaid medical bills, with undocumented migrants racking up $36 million in uncompensated care in 2022 alone, according to the Massachusetts Health Policy Commission. At this rate, Boston might want to consider changing its slogan to "the city that never stops paying." Now, before the rage, Governor Maura Healey started out defiant, declaring that Massachusetts State Police wouldn't lift a finger to help with federal deportation efforts. But as public frustration mounted and ICE agents started rolling into East Boston like an episode of Cops, Healey quietly backed off, letting the rage happen without interference. It's a classic case of political whiplash. 1 minute, she's standing strong against federal enforcement. The next, she's handing them the keys to the city. So why is this happening now? Blame the border chaos. Since President Biden took office, the southern border has become a revolving door. Customs and Border Protection reported over 7 million encounters between 2021 and 24, with record-breaking numbers of migrants entering the country every year. Overwhelmed border states, unable to manage the influx, have been shipping migrants to sanctuary cities like Boston faster than Amazon Prime. Massachusetts alone saw a 36% jump in migrant arrivals in 2023, adding to the already strained resources. What started as a feel-good policy has spiraled into a logistical nightmare, with Boston's progressive ideals slamming into the harsh realities of overcrowding and underfunding. Now, Boston finds itself at a crossroads. The city's sanctuary policies, meant to showcase compassion, are colliding with the cold, hard facts of public safety, budget shortfalls, and an overburdened infrastructure. It's a classic case of what happens when idealism meets a massive invoice. At some point, Boston will have to decide whether to double down on its progressive values or start making some very practical and very unpopular choices. Either way, grab your popcorn because this show is far from over.
ICE Boston quickly takes down its next targets, including this illegal alien from Brazil who has an Interpol red notice for armed robbery. This Salvadoran illegal alien charged locally with rape and released by a sanctuary jurisdiction.
Señor, ¿cómo se llama?
And this Dominican illegal alien charged with assault with a deadly weapon and heroin trafficking. Officers also arrested this Guatemalan MS-13 gang member facing gun charges. ICE says he was released from local custody just the day before. Their detainer request was ignored because of sanctuary policies. And in a sign of shifting priorities with the new Trump administration, this man, who was in the same apartment as the target, was also arrested after ICE determined he's also in the U.S. illegally. This is what ICE calls collateral.
So you guys got your main target just now, but you got somebody else. What just happened?
So our main target was released by a sanctuary jurisdiction, not honoring a detainer. That person was released back into the community, and when we went to go find him, he's with somebody else who was previously removed from the United States. So he's going to go today too.
And that is exactly what Border Czar Tom Homan has warned would happen.
When we find the bad guy, he's probably with others that are in the United States illegally. They may not be a criminal priority, but we're not walking away from them.
ICE Boston says they will continue to go into sanctuary jurisdictions and do their job.
Today was a good day.
What's happening in Boston and across America isn't just a series of unfortunate events. It's a full-blown pattern, and the data is uglier than a group photo taken on a flip phone at midnight. Let's start with the gangs. MS-13 and Tren de Aragua aren't just the villains of some gritty Netflix series. They're running the streets like it's a personal playground. MS-13 has been linked to 4,000 homicides nationwide in the last decade, making them the undisputed champions of organized mayhem. Tren de Aragua, the new kid on the block, is already diving headfirst into human trafficking and extortion. They're targeting vulnerable migrants, many of whom won't report crimes because they're scared of deportation. Oh, and as a cherry on top, these gangs recruit straight out of migrant shelters. It's like a job fair for criminals, except no one's handing out resumes, just threats. Now let's talk about the money, because all this chaos doesn't come cheap. The average U.S. taxpayer shells out $1,156 a year to cover the costs of illegal immigration, which includes everything from emergency housing to extra ESL classes. Yes, Massachusetts is feeling it big time, with the state burning through $1.8 billion annually just to keep up. Nationwide, we're looking at $151 billion in 2023 alone, a number that's risen faster than inflation at a gas station. And what's causing this spike? Well, blame it on the nearly 3 million border encounters last year, with a chunk of those migrants ending up in sanctuary cities like Boston. It's basically a never-ending game of hot potato, but with people, and no one wants to hold on to the problem. They only pretend so they can earn brownie points on television. The criminal justice system is also taking a beating. ICE issued 17,000 detainer requests to sanctuary cities last year, and less than 10% were honored. That's like sending out 1,000 wedding invites and only getting 10 RSVPs. One standout case in Boston involved a Dominican national charged with assault and heroin trafficking. ICE said, "Hey, can we have this guy?" Boston said, "Nah." He was released and, surprise, arrested weeks later for another violent crime. It's the kind of rinse and repeat policy that makes you question who's actually running the show. Nationwide, the numbers are just as bad. In Texas alone, over 320,000 criminal offenses were attributed to illegal immigrants in 5 years, including 2,000 homicides, 8,000 sexual assaults, and 25,000 burglaries. And that's just one state. Sanctuary policies across the country are like get out of jail free cards, except the only ones benefiting are criminals. And the ripple effect? Public services are cracking under pressure. In Massachusetts, emergency shelters have seen a 50% increase in demand, with migrants taking up most of the beds. Public schools in Boston are reporting that 1 in 5 students now comes from a migrant family, leading to overcrowded classrooms and a scramble for multilingual teachers. Healthcare isn't faring any better, with undocumented migrants accounting for $23 million in emergency care costs statewide. And if you need to see a doctor for something non-urgent, good luck. Wait times for non-critical services are up by 15%, which means those 6 hours waiting to get help at the emergency room just got a little longer. And while this circus continues, violent gangs are cashing in on the chaos. ICE reported that 20% of the individuals arrested in 2023 operations had already been deported once, only to waltz right back in thanks to weak border security and sanctuary policies. It's like the ultimate VIP pass. Commit crimes, get deported, come back for round 2. The toll is undeniable. Communities live in fear, resources are tapped out, and local governments are running around trying to put out fires with a garden hose. The Boston raids are just one chapter in a much bigger saga of neglect, mismanagement, and priorities so misplaced they're practically in another zip code. Until sanctuary cities are held accountable, this mess is going to keep repeating itself, just like the offenders they keep letting walk free. Now, there's a video that's going viral of this Haitian immigrant saying that he's not going back to Haiti and then praising Obama. Well, border czar Tom Homan reacted to it. Here's what he had to say.
You see that video, I'm curious, what do you think?
I'm not going back to Haiti. Trump.
Well, he's wrong. He's going back to Haiti. I tell him that.
Tom Homan's response hits like an icy bucket of truth. Immigration enforcement isn't a suggestion, and the system doesn't take our SVP requests. The defiant, I'm not going back to Haiti, is a legal equivalent of a kid saying, you can't make me go to bed. Spoiler alert. They're going to bed. Some people think the system is as flexible as a yoga instructor, but as Homan reminds us, ICE's mission and its ability to enforce the law isn't here to play along. For those with criminal records, the debate is over before it starts. Now let's break it down. In 2024, ICE deported 271,484 individuals, the highest number since 2014. Of those, 88,763 had criminal charges or convictions, which means the list isn't filled with jaywalkers and overdue library book offenders. We're talking about people convicted of violent crimes like assault, robbery, and homicide. Haiti alone accounted for over 7,000 deportations, with gang members, smugglers, and repeat offenders topping the list. Homan isn't just making bold statements. He's citing a system that's cleaning house. But here's where the system gets messy: sanctuary policies. In 2024, ICE issued 25,000 detainer requests to sanctuary jurisdictions, but over 18,000 were ignored. That's like asking your roommate to take the trash out only to find it piling up in the kitchen the next day. In Massachusetts, over 2,100 ICE detainers were declined in 2024, allowing individuals with violent records to stay in the community. One can only wonder how many of those folks went back to business as usual, while local law enforcement scrambled to clean up the fallout. And let's not forget the broader picture. Illegal crossings at the southern border hit 8.4 million encounters between 21 and 24, and a 24% increase from the previous 3-year period. Many of these individuals relocated to sanctuary jurisdictions, adding strain to resources already stretched thinner than a fast food drive-through line at lunch. Meanwhile, Haiti continues to dominate deportation priorities because, well, you don't get gang members and smugglers on your must-keep list. Homan's frustration isn't just about one man's defiance. It's about the disconnect between perception and reality. The idea that someone can just declare, I'm not going back, and expect ICE to shrug and say, okay, cool, bro, we'll see you later, is laughable. Immigration enforcement doesn't run on wishful thinking or personal preferences. It runs on laws. Federal law is crystal clear. If you're here illegally, that's a crime, And if on top of that, you're committing other crimes, it's not a question if you're leaving, it's a question of when. The takeaway, this isn't just about one guy's bold proclamation. It's about putting the brakes on years of chaos and getting back to a system that actually works. Sanctuary policies and ignored detainers only make the situation worse, creating a revolving door for criminals and a massive headache for law enforcement. Love or hate Homan's bluntness, the numbers back him up. This isn't about feelings. It's about fixing a broken system and protecting communities. Whether you agree or not, one thing's for sure. The plane to Haiti isn't waiting for anyone's permission. But not everyone's happy with Trump and Tom Homan following through on the promises that Trump made on the campaign trail in 2024. Some Democrats, Ilhan Omar, is very, very upset.
It is hard to imagine anything more un-American than that. The Trump administration's immigration policy is a threat to immigrants like criminals. America is too great to fall prey to Donald Trump's anti-immigrant agenda. We need to restore basic humanity to our immigration system, and that starts with repealing the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, with Our Neighbors Not Enemies Act. Together, we will end this xenophobic law once and for all.
Ilhan Omar calling the Alien Enemies Act un-American is like calling George Washington a TikTok influencer. Historically off base and a little embarrassing. Let's unpack this step by step because our argument is like a Jenga tower built on emotional manipulation and historical cherry picking. And we're about to pull out all the weak pieces. First, a history lesson. The Alien Enemies Act of 1798 was signed by John Adams, a founding father who, last I checked, helped create America, not undermine it. This law gives the president authority to deport or detain individuals from hostile nations during wartime or when there's a credible threat of invasion. It's been invoked exactly 3 times during the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II. In other words, this isn't some rogue anti-immigration weapon. It's a wartime tool designed to keep people from sneaking treason into the country like it's contraband at airport security. If protecting national security during wartime is un-American, then I guess the founding fathers need a rebrand. Now, Omar spins this as anti-American and xenophobic. The Alien Enemies Act isn't about immigration, it's about dealing with threats to national security. Deporting gang members and cartel operatives isn't xenophobia, it's common sense, because as we've seen, these folks are causing straight up mayhem all over the country. Pretending otherwise is like insisting fire extinguishers are offensive to smoke. But Omar's biggest blind spot? Sanctuary policies. In 2024 alone, ICE issued 32,400 detainer requests to sanctuary jurisdictions and 20,500 were ignored. That's thousands of criminals, including repeat violent offenders, who were released back into communities because sanctuary cities treated federal law like a suggestion. California alone declined over 3,000 detainers, and data shows that over 70% of those released were rearrested within a year for new crimes ranging from assault to drug trafficking. If Omar really wants to address inhumane systems, maybe she should start with the policies enabling dangerous offenders to cycle back into communities unchecked. And let's not ignore the practical challenges Trump faces here. Legal experts, including the Brennan Center for Justice, have pointed out that stretching the Alien Enemies Act to cover gangs and cartels might not hold up in court. Attributing the actions of drug cartels to foreign governments is a tough sell, and it's estimated that 50% of such cases could be struck down in federal court. But here's the thing. Questioning Trump's application of the law doesn't make the law itself un-American. It just means we need guardrails, not a full repeal. Omar's claim that repealing the Alien Enemies Act would restore humanity to our immigration system is laughable. This law isn't about everyday immigration. It's a wartime contingency tool. Removing it would do nothing to fix border policies, improve asylum processes, or reduce detention backlogs. It would simply take away a hammer that's been used sparingly and effectively during actual crises. If she thinks that repealing this law will magically solve America's immigration issues, I'd like to invite her to repeal gravity while she's at it and see how that one works out for her. Now, here's a kicker. Omar's grandstanding is all style and no substance. She's painting the Alien Enemies Act as some kind of villainous relic to score political points, ignoring its historical role as a safeguard during times of peril. Meanwhile, her own policy preferences, like sanctuary policies, actively undermine public safety and make the problem worse. If the law doesn't hold up in court, fine. Let the courts decide, but calling it un-American because it doesn't align with our Twitter narrative is as lazy as it is wrong. The bottom line, the Alien Enemies Act isn't some outdated boogeyman. It's a tool that's been used responsibly for over 2 centuries to protect the nation. Trump's interpretation might be unconventional, but it's rooted in real problems that demand real solutions. Omar's argument, on the other hand, is nothing more than political theater, all flash, no substance, and about as sturdy as a house of cards in a hurricane. So here's where we stand. Ilhan Omar wants to repeal the Alien Enemies Act, branding it un-American. But is a law designed to protect national security during times of crisis really the problem? Trump's use of it targets gangs and cartels, causing devastation here at home. Shouldn't those be the real focus? And what about sanctuary policies, where thousands of violent offenders are released back into communities instead of being deported? How do you feel about cities ignoring federal detainer requests, letting criminals reoffend while law-abiding citizens pay the price? Does that sound like a solution, or just political theater dressed up as compassion? If the Alien Enemies Act is repealed, who will be held accountable for the consequences? And most importantly, how safe do you feel knowing that people in charge are more concerned with optics than outcomes? Isn't that the great Democrat dilemma? Anyway, folks, you tell me what you think in the comments down below. Hope you have a terrific day. Peace.